Welcome to the Church of Rock Show, Episode 7, The Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed. Welcome, everybody, to the 7th episode of the Church of Rock Show. In this episode, I will be discussing the Rolling Stones' 8th studio album, Let It Bleed. And as I go with the 8th studio album, I'm going by the number of albums that were released in their native England. Let It Bleed was released on December 5th, 1969. So this year will mark the 50th anniversary of this great album. The album was recorded sporadically over a year between November 1968 to November 1969 at 3 studios: Olympic Studios in London, Electric Studios in Los Angeles, and Sunset Sound in Los Angeles, though the majority of the album was recorded at Olympic. Let It Bleed is really a marvel in itself, considering the Stones were going through some changes in personnel centering around Brian Jones. Jones by this time could be best described as erratic and inconsistent in his mindset, which are two qualities that are not great to have when you're trying to work within a cohesive unit, let alone at a time when the Stones are really hitting their groove as a group and in the midst of what many would call the golden age of the band. In my opinion, all the work they did from 1968, starting with the album Beggar's Banquet, through 1972's Exile on Main Street, is the finest of the Stones' output. Let It Bleed, which is in the middle of this era, is what can be considered as a transition album. And having a transition in personnel and having a transition album such as Let It Bleed as part of the greatest era of your band or your career is absolutely amazing to me. With Jones basically floating in the air, being almost a non-factor, the Stones for the most part on Let It Bleed work as a quartet, with many guest musicians brought in to round out the sound. Let It Bleed, however, does take a peek into what would become their core band by the introduction of guitarist Mick Taylor. Taylor, like Jones, only plays on 2 of the 9 tracks of the album. I was recently on a fan forum which posed the question, as only us fans can: would you consider Let It Bleed a Brian Jones era album or a Mick Taylor era album? Needless to say, the debate can rage on when it comes to a question like this, but my answer is that it would be neither. Going back to the transition phase the Stones were going through in 1969, this is what I consider. It's just a transition. It's in that in-between phase. I can't really consider whether or not it's a Brian Jones era album or if it's going to be a Mick Taylor era album, but it's just great where it is in itself. The void created in the band is Jones, and mainly his guitar spot, which Jones's contribution to this particular album includes no guitar playing at all. And Taylor plays a distinguishable slide guitar on the tracks Country Honk and Live With Me. And Live With Me could be considered the first proper Mick Taylor era track recorded by the Stones, as Taylor stated that Live With Me was the first time he traded licks with Keith Richards on a Stones recording. We can even drill down on the question more as to when the Stones' first personnel transition occurred, and it can be pointed directly to the recording of Live With Me. The Stones would go through a second transition after Taylor leaves the band, with the record Black and Blue. So an argument can be made that there's a subgenre, so to say, for the Rolling Stones of transition albums because of the major personnel changes that they went through. And that would include both Let It Bleed and Black and Blue. You can just throw those 2 albums in together as themselves. And hopefully one day we'll get to talk about Black and Blue. That's another really great album by the Stones. As for Jones, the end was tragic. He was officially let go by the band in June of 1969. And on July 3rd, unfortunately, Brian Jones did pass away at the young age of 27 by drowning in his swimming pool. Where Keith Richards ranks in all-time guitarists, I don't think that's really fair when it comes to Keith Richards, because one of the things that I've always said about Keith Richards is, okay, his guitar playing is what it is. But here's the thing about this guy. Does anybody write or come up with better intro licks to songs than Keith Richards does? I mean, to me, that's where the bread and butter is for Keith Richards. Is it's in his songwriting and the sounds that he's able to come up with and everything, which has just been really a staple to the Rolling Stones sound. So the fact that, of course, Keith's doing a lion's share of the writing for the band, and he's got to take on like all this extra guitar work when it comes to this record, and he also contributes his first lead vocal on this album. I would say that Keith Richards can somehow be considered the MVP of this album here, just by all the contributions that he made to the album itself. I want to get a little bit talking about the album art. This is an iconic piece of album art, in my opinion. And it was designed by Robert Brownjohn, who is a friend of Keith Richards. It's depicting a record stacker changer. And I know for many of our young listeners, they're probably like, what the heck is a record stacker changer? But I know for many people who are my age and older, we lived by the record stacker. And it was just one of those great things where we were able to stack records on top of each other and just let them play. But then unfortunately, they just scratched the hell out of everything. So it kind of ruined our records in some way. But it was a matter of convenience. And I know as a kid, I used that very much so. It was definitely a part of my life. But back to the record stacker changer, it has it's layered with a cake on the top layer, which can be, and then there's also on top of it, which are clay or wax figurines of the Stones, which kind of like almost look like they would be the candles of a cake. If you can I can best describe it as those number candles that you see when people turn a certain age, like, oh, here you go, here's 2 4s, you're 44. But on the top of this cake, you have the Rolling Stones, which is crazy cool. I would love to have that on top of my birthday cakes. You just never have to change them out. Just have the Rolling Stones on top of there and boom, there you go. And below that, there's a tire. And then below that, there's a pizza. And below that, there's a clock. And below that, we have a take canister. And the very bottom is an old style phonograph playing the record Let It Bleed. The back cover is the same concept, but the scene is a mangled cake, piece of it gone, and the only Stone left standing is Keith. And I guess when I described earlier with Keith Richards being such a vital piece to keeping this album together with his guitar playing, I guess it's almost kind of apropos in a way. And then also with the type of life that Keith Richards has led. I mean, the Rolling Stones, thankfully, the core of the band, when you're talking about Mick and Keith and Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts, thankfully, they're all still with us, which is great. But Keith being alive with the type of life that he led, and he's like a cat. He has 9 lives. He just never, he'll never go away, which is great for us because the more Keith Richards that we have in our life, I think the better off we are. So I think that was pretty cool, having Keith being the last man standing on the record. Now, Let It Bleed, it was a commercial success, as it reached number 1 in the UK and it reached number 3 in the US charts. I was able to find one review of the album from that era, and that came from Rolling Stone magazine's critic, Grail Marcus, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that name correctly. And Marcus said that the middle of the album was great, and it had great songs, but Gimme Shelter and You Can't Always Get What You Want seem to matter most, because they both reach for reality and end up confronting it, almost mastering what's real, or what reality will feel like as the years fade in. I was hoping to go to old reliable Robert Christgau for his take on the album, but he never reviewed or graded the album, which is kind of disappointing to me. I always like going back to Robert Christgau and see what he had to say, but he did include Let It Bleed in his basic record library of the 1950s and 1960s recordings. So he does consider Let It Bleed an essential piece of recorded music from the 50s and 60s, and something that we all should have in our collections. And I would tend to agree with him. This is definitely an essential album. So that was a little bit of the backstory on Let It Bleed. So now let's get into the tracks and dissect some of these lyrics. Let It Bleed opens with a bang with the track Gimme Shelter. Nobody writes opening riffs to songs like Keith Richards. And the opening to Gimme Shelter is iconic not just for the Stones, but for the history of rock music. It feels serious and dark, which sets the tone of the song. The song's message is so simple that it hits you like a right cross to the jaw. The unrest within communities and the war in Vietnam is red hot in 1969. Jagger's vocals are so direct, using nature and its fury as the descriptive to the current social climate. The social climate is unsettled, like a storm or a fire. It sets such a real scene and is the atmosphere of the track. The chorus is direct. War children is just a shot away. The war in Vietnam was probably the most real and in color war the world had seen to this date, as it was sort of a televised event on every day at dinner time. And the war being a shot away is you are one turn of the knob on your TV and the war is in your space. Or if you knew a male who was draft eligible, his life would be changed. And unfortunately, life can be only a shot away. Mary Clayton contributed to the vocals, belting the lines, rape, murder. It's just a shot away. It's just a shot away. This is a great move by the Stones, in my opinion. Having Clayton's powerful and soulful female voice is perfect. The war piece, as pertaining to the fighting, was mostly men, but the rape and murder can happen everywhere. And Clayton is like the every woman, so to say. She is a fairly anonymous voice on a Rolling Stones record. So it's like it could have been anyone singing those lines, but Mary Clayton is nothing short of perfect for Gimme Shelter. I'm going to read these lyrics. Oh, the storm is threatening my very life today. If I don't get some shelter, oh, I'm going to fade away. That's where the personal aspect comes in with this song here. It's very direct. It's Mick Jagger just taking a really personal direction to this, to the song, and it just hits everybody. Everybody's affected. And then, as I talked about here, war children is just a shot away. It's just a shot away. Ooh, see the fire sweeping our very street today. Burns like red coal carpet. Mad bull lost its way. Again, this is the chaos coming into any neighborhood or any street. Something can just blow up at any point from a social standpoint. And then there's the Mary Clayton parts, the rape, murder. It's just a shot away. It's just a shot away. Again, that is just the icing on the cake. Having Mary Clayton singing those lyrics and just belting those out, and just having that female voice there in her just kind of raging at the fear that and the upsetting nature of what's going on around her. It's just absolutely amazing. It's a great song. It's a powerful testament, not only to open the song, but it's just a powerful statement in itself here. And the Rolling Stones are just really going after it on Gimme Shelter. Absolutely fantastic. The next track is Love in Vain. It's a traditional blues number written by Robert Johnson. It's a cool track which features guest Ry Cooder on mandolin. Not much for me to say here, but the track is paying homage to the Stones' affinity to classic American blues music. Keith Richards stated that he and Mick loved the song but wanted to tinker with the arrangement and not go straight ahead Johnson, but they added a bit of country to the track. I will say hearing Mick sing in a mock Southern U.S. accent can be a little goofy, but this is Mick feeling the music and having the confidence to go into another direction with his voice. Mick Jagger really is a versatile vocalist, in my opinion, and he's never been afraid to push the limits and try new things. And this is just one of those examples here with Love in Vain, and we can go into many other tracks that where Mick Jagger does this, and it just works. The guy, I think you just gotta have the confidence and the balls just to kind of go outside of your comfort zone. And we all know what Mick's comfort zone is. I mean, we know the hits that the Rolling Stones had up to this time and even up then. But man, there's just some really cool stuff that Mick will go ahead and try. And it's just really just been a gift for all of us. And the lyrics here, well, I followed her to the station with a suitcase in my hand. Whoa, it's hard to tell when all your love's in vain. That's just heartbreaking stuff right there. And I love hearing these vulnerable lyrics from a male's perspective because, man, we all fall in love and we all feel love in a way, but a lot of times it's hard for males to express that. And here is just a guy saying, it's like, all right, my woman's leaving town. She wants to leave town. Whether she's leaving because she wants to or has to do something. He's like, man, I'm following her wherever she goes. And unfortunately, to me, when you see it, when you get into when all your love's in vain, it's kind of like she doesn't love him anymore and she just wants to get away from him, but he's going to try like hell to go and win her love back. When the train come in the station, I looked her in the eye. Well, the train come in the station, I looked her in the eye. Well, I felt so sad, so lonesome, I could not help but cry. And this is when I think that he's getting the realization. It's like, all right, I did it. I looked her in the eye, but he sees the emptiness in her eyes and in her face. And he just gets to a point of self-awareness where he's like, all right, this is not working out here. And then it wraps up, when the train left the station, it had two lights on behind. Well, the blue light was my baby and the red light was my mind. Now, I'm not really too familiar when it comes to these train lights here. I mean, I guess that the red light is just universal when it comes to stop. And it's almost like the blue light is for her just to, I would almost kind of consider it as a green light, where she's going to go anyway. She's left, she's gone. And then the red light is my mind. That's just the guy saying, all right, I need to stop this charade, what I'm doing. It's not going to work out. I tried. I need to move on. And then it wraps up, all my love's in vain. The next track is Country Honk. I want to say this one, when I first heard it, it threw me for a loop. I was like, this sounds an awful lot like Honky Tonk Women, which was a song that was familiar I was with since I was a little kid, just because it was such a major hit by the Rolling Stones, and I listened to a lot of oldies and classic rock radio as a kid, so I heard Honky Tonk Women a ton before I purchased the Let It Bleed album. But Country Honk is the original, and it is recorded as intended. The lyrics between Country Honk and Honky Tonk Women are slightly changed, almost like the original alternate lyric situation. And I can remember the first time I ever heard an alternate lyric situation with two versions of a song that were officially released. And this is going back to when I was a teenager, hearing Guns N' Roses' Don't Cry. Two lyrics, two recorded songs, and Country Honk and Honky Tonk Women, same deal. The Rolling Stones are kind of almost like a trailblazers when it comes to that. Not really sure if there was any other situation like that beforehand, but if somebody wants to chime in on that, please let me know, because to me, this almost seems like the first official release of an alternate lyric. Country Honk was recorded in March of 1969. Then the single Honky Tonk Women was recorded June of 1969 and released in July of 1969. So the single was released and was a hit before the original incarnation of the song was to be released as part of Let It Bleed. The lyrics to the track are really sexy, and it works for a single version of the song. I see a play on words within the verse. I played a divorcee in New York City. Is it played? Or are they just referring to getting laid? It sounds like the divorcee is coming on strong and Jagger singing, I had to put up some kind of fight. But eventually he gives in and gets covered in a bed of roses and they do some blow and get it on. I imagine this is just another day in the life of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. And it was probably crazy for those guys. And they probably did this and saw this a lot. But I don't want to get into too much of their personal lives and what they're doing. But yeah, they lived a pretty wild time. But going into the differences between country honk and honky tonk women, it comes in with the first series of lyrics. And going into country honk, it begins with, I'm sitting in a bar, tippling a jar in Jackson, and on the street, the summer sun, it shines. There's many a barroom queen I've had in Jackson, but I just can't seem to drink you off my mind. And then honky tonk women. These are the lyrics that I prefer. I think it just sounds so much better. Just going into the first lines. I met a gin-soaked barroom queen in Memphis. Gin-soaked barroom queen. That is amazing, amazing stuff. She tried to take me upstairs for a ride. She had to heave me right across her shoulder because I just can't seem to drink you off my mind. Wow. Now, the rest of the lyrics here, basically the same. It's those honky tonk women. Gimme, gimme those honky tonk blues. I played a divorcee in New York City. I had to put up some kind of fight. The lady then all dressed me up in roses. She blew my nose and then she blew my mind. Just an absolutely incredible song. Both of them are good. I would have to say that I do prefer the rock, straight ahead style honky tonk women, and the Rolling Stones, if this was really a plan for them to get this song out to the masses and they felt like they had a hit here, I think that doing it honky tonk women style rather than country honk, I think country honk would not have gone off too well as a single. So reworking it into honky tonk women was definitely the right move. The next track on the album is Live With Me. This is a crazy raunchy song and the complete lyrics need to be read, and I will definitely get into that. And this is Mick Taylor's first immersive Rolling Stones track, playing the dual lead with Keith Richards. Bobby Keys is on the sax, and this is setting the table for the Stones sound for the next half decade. With the dual leads and the horns, it's just really powerful stuff. The song is the reason why the London Bach Choir did not want to have the credits on for them contributing on this album. They didn't want to have it here. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more. And the London Bach Choir, of course, they're going to be on the track You Can't Always Get What You Want. They don't play on this track, and we'll definitely talk about their contribution later, but they would really just did not want to have any indirect association with any of their contributions on this album. And this piece is definitely part of that. I got nasty habits. I take tea at 3. Yes, and the meat I eat for dinner must be hung up for a week. My best friend, he shoots water rats and feeds them to the geese. Don't you think there's a place for you in between the sheets? Whoa. This is a guy talking about we're going back to the self-awareness. He has these habits. First of all, he takes tea at 3. That's pretty common in certain parts of the world. So he's kind of just showing off to everybody like, hey, I'm like everybody else when it comes to this, but I do all this other stuff and I associate with these other people. So then he's almost kind of directing this to a woman and saying, hey, this sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Why don't you come here? There's a place for you in my bed. Come on now, honey. We can build a home for 3. Come on now, honey. Don't you want to live with me? Now that one's a little bit confusing. Like when you're talking about here, hey, we can build a home for 3. Does this mean that he wants to start a family with this woman? Which almost kind of seems like it's kind of a little off the tracks a little bit when it comes to some of these Rolling Stones songs, because it's just at this point like yep, let's go and have sex. But in this one here, it's talking about, all right, let's build a home for 3. And there's a score of harebrained children. They're all locked in the nursery. They got earphone heads. They got dirty necks. They're so 20th century. Well, they queue up for the bathroom round about 7:35. Don't you think we need a woman's touch to make it come alive? Ooh. You look good, pram, pushing down the high street. Come on now, honey, don't you want to live with me? Well, the servants are so helpful, dear. The cook, she is a whore. The butler has a place for her behind the pantry door. The maid, she's French. She's got no sense. She's wild for crazy horse. And when she strips, the chauffeur flips. The footman's eyes get crossed. This is this is almost like, all right. This is Mick Jagger now talking about the people that are employed by this house here. And I think that we almost get kind of a misconception in a lot of ways when we see what would be the quote unquote helps role within a household by what we've seen in different forms of entertainment. And this is Jagger and Richards just showing us that, hey, these people are all human beings too. And they all have wants, they all have needs, and they might also have vices as well. And they kind of go ahead and they do it in their own little area with their own social group, kind of out of the way where nobody's watching and when nobody's seeing. That to me is just kind of like an intriguing part of this particular song, because I can just only imagine when you're talking about when people have cooks and butlers and chauffeurs, this is the upper class of society. And would you really think that the upper class of society would be kind of conforming or even, I would say, even endorsing the lyrics and the music of the Rolling Stones? I would say probably not. And then God forbid if the people that they associate with and who they employ and who they pay to are acting like quote unquote derelicts or degenerates, would just throw them for a loop. It's just an absolutely greatly written song. I absolutely love it. The next track is Let It Bleed. And please, everybody, take this in a good way. If you think that Live With Me was bad, Let It Bleed, whoo, is, my guess is if you're taking in this podcast, you are going to take this in a good way, and you have an open mind, you have a sense of humor, and I don't think that we have any prudes here, do we? If you are, that's all right. But just to give a fair warning, the lyrics to this song are just gritty, nasty, straight ahead. It's just dirty. It's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And if you're one of those who easily get embarrassed by crude lyrics, it's time to close your ears, because we're going to jump into this right now. Well, we all need someone we can lean on. And if you want it, you can lean on me. Doesn't sound too bad right off the start, everybody. I mean, this is talking about, it can go, I mean, this can go anyway. This is, to me, is like, all right, these are the closest people in your life, your relationship. I mean, I would almost think like, all right, you need someone you can lean on. If you want it, you can lean on me. It's almost kind of like, I think of like, all right, that's kind of relationship that me and my wife have. We have that close bond, and we're there for each other. But then this song goes into a completely different direction, because if there's other people that may not have people like that close in their life, so they go elsewhere. And here it goes. She said, my breasts, they will always be open. Baby, you can rest your weary head right on me. And there will always be a space in my parking lot when you need a little coke and sympathy. This is where just the straight ahead grittiness of this song comes in here. Strong woman's voice here. She's very sexual. She's very direct. And this is something that I think maybe not too many people were familiar with or even comfortable with back in 1969. So that's where you almost get the shock value within the lyrics of this song. And then it goes into the chorus. Yeah, we all need someone we can dream on. And if you want it, baby, you can dream on me. Yeah, we all need someone we can cream on. And if you want it, you can cream on me. Again, very sexual stuff. And I love how the chorus goes within the song. And they changed the lyrics up a little bit so it's not a predictable type of chorus. So it's really cool that they go into different directions when it comes to Let It Bleed. So yeah, this is just absolutely amazing stuff. I was dreaming of a steel guitar engagement when you drunk my health in scented jasmine tea, but you knifed me in the dirty, filthy basement with the jaded, faded, junkie nurse. Oh, what pleasant company. That's just very, very direct. It's just crazy. And then finally, there's just another part here when it comes to the chorus here is like we all need someone we can bleed on, and that just kind of like the play on going ahead and stabbing somebody and there's just blood everywhere. So it's like not only can you dream on me, you can cream on me, you can do all that stuff, but if you want to bleed all over me too, it's almost like that. This is coming from, I think, that woman's perspective there. We're saying just whatever you have, just do it. Just go ahead and just get it over with. I'll slice you and dice you up any way that you want. And then it ends up here as it concludes the song. It says, it's like, get it on Ryder, who you can bleed all over me. Yeah. And then it goes and get it on Ryder, who, and then you can cream all over me and you can come all over me. Again. And it's just, yeah, again, very, very sexual in nature. And I think that it probably offended a lot of people if they heard it, but I would say that most of the people that would get offended by these lyrics probably weren't listening to the Rolling Stones at the time anyway. But if these lyrics ever came across their eyes, they would just absolutely be appalled and just make a big stink about it. But this is art, everybody, and this is the great thing about it, and the freedom of speech and the freedom of expression. And the record companies it was just letting the Rolling Stones do their thing, and again, just great stuff. The next track is Midnight Rambler. It's a track of traditional blues with a Rolling Stones twist. The song starts out very subtle, and the lyrics are almost vague, and it's like G-rated about a mystery man that people know about, but is just kind of there in a way. And this is a little bit more of a safer type of track rather than some of the previous two tracks that we saw. So this would definitely make the virgin ears sound pretty good to them. And again, they're just going into a story here. Did you ever talk about the Midnight Rambler? Everybody got to go. Did you hear about the Midnight Rambler? The one that shut the kitchen door. He don't give a hoot of warning. Wrapped up in a black cat cloak. He don't go in the light of the morning. He split time. The cockerels crows. Talking about the midnight gambler, the one you never seen before. Did you see him jump the garden wall, sighing down the wind so sadly? Listen, and you'll hear him moan, talking about the midnight gambler. Everybody got to go. Again, this is going back. These are just some very, very safe lyrics, and it's almost kind of like you can almost take it from like a crime novel or one of those like a PG rated crime show that you see on network television today. This kind of falls into that writing style, but the song does turn R-rated and graphic, and it's like, this is how I compare it. Going back to the movie The Wizard of Oz, when the movie goes from black and white to color, things become more vivid, things become more real. And it couldn't, I mean, for me, it's for the better if you have an imaginary mind, but if you're the type of person that are just like, all right, I'm good with what you guys were saying before, it turns to this. Well, you heard about the Boston. It's not one of those. Well, talking about the midnight, the one that closed the bedroom door. I'm called the hit and run raper in anger, the knife sharpened tippy toe, or just shoot 'em dead. Brain bell jangler. You know, the one you never seen before. So if you ever meet the Midnight Rambler coming down the marble hall, well, he's pouncing like a proud Black Panther. Well, you can say, I told you so. Well, don't you listen for the Midnight Rambler. Play it easy as you go. I'm going to smash down your plate glass windows. Put a fist through your steel-plated door. Do you hear about the Midnight Rambler? He'll leave his footprints up and down your hall. And did you hear about the Midnight Gambler? And did you see me make my midnight call? And if you ever catch the Midnight Rambler, I'll steal your mistress from under your nose. I'll go easy with your cold-fanged anger. I'll stick my knife right down your throat, baby, and it hurts. You see how it takes a more graphic turn? I would say that we see this is something that I think we see in society more now when it comes to our entertainment, and it comes down to choice. It comes down, all right, do we want to have kind of like a safe type of television show or movie or music, where we want to kind of have everything safe and just be entertained and have a smile on our face. But then you can go into other areas of art where lyrics are more colorful like this. The visions that we see in front of us in a television show or a movie, they're more graphic. They're more real. You get all of that in Midnight Rambler, and it's just a hell of a job that the Stones do to bring that all together. And even with the tempo of the song, with, I would say, the PG section of the song, very upbeat, you can almost kind of like dance to it in a way. But then when it gets into that dark R-rated type of stuff, it gets into that slow blues groove. And it's like there's two songs in one going on here, but with the same theme. Really, really great stuff by the Stones. The next track is You Got the Silver. And this is something different for the Stones, as this is Keith Richards' first official lead vocal on a Rolling Stones album. And this is a composition that he wrote about his then girlfriend, Anita Pallenberg. It's such a simple and sweet love song, and Keith really pours his soul into the vocals. I love Keith on vocals. This is also the final appearance by Brian Jones on a Rolling Stones recording. Let's jump into these lyrics. They're really sweet. Hey babe, what's in your eyes? I saw them flashing like airplane lights. You fill my cup, babe, that's for sure. I must come back for a little more. Man, isn't that just great? It's like he like whatever his woman is giving him, it's just never enough for him, and he just needs to get more. He can't get enough, and it's just done in just such a sweet way. You got my heart, you got my soul, you got the silver, you got the gold, you got the diamonds from the mine. Well, that's all right. It'll buy some time. Tell me, honey, what will I do when I'm hungry and thirsty too? Feeling foolish, and that's for sure. Just waiting here at your kitchen door. Man, it's like he's begging for her. When he's in need, when he's hungry, when he's thirsty. It isn't, to me, it's just not 100% sexual. It's just companionship. It's just talking with her. And he's just like, all right, whenever you're ready for me, I'm waiting here at the kitchen door for you. So just tell me when to come in. Hey, baby, what's in your eyes? Is that the diamonds from your mind? What's that laughing in your smile? I don't care. No, I don't care. So it's almost like he sees that she's in a pleased type of way, and he doesn't even really care if she's laughing at him. He's just happy to be there. And then it closes up, oh babe, you got my soul. You got the silver. You got the gold. If that's your love, it just made me blind. I don't care. No, that's no big surprise. Again, beautiful, beautiful stuff. The next track we're going to go into is Monkey Man. The vibraphone and the deep bass groove at the jump of this song is just so distinctive. And both are being played by Bill Wyman. And then Keith jumping into one of those hard driving riffs of his. Monkey Man is a tribute to the Italian artist, and again, we'll get into pronunciations. I hope I'm doing this correctly. Mario Schifano, whom they met on the set of his movie. And again, not fluent in Italian, Umano non umano, which translates into human not human. We can slice and dice these lyrics to nauseam, but the muse for Monkey Man is Schifano. Imagine the type of life this guy was living. I'm seeing living fast and hard, and the company he keeps is no different. I'm a flea-bit peanut monkey. All my friends are junkies. That's not really true. It's almost like, all right, I'm a flea-bit peanut monkey. He's being descriptive of himself. And that's fine. But then when he starts talking about the people that he's associating with, he's almost like, just kidding. They're not really junkies. I'm a cold Italian pizza. I can use a lemon squeezer. What you do. But I've been a bit and I've been tossed around. But every she-rat in this town, have you, babe? She-rat in this town. Again, another great lyric. I've never heard of the term she-rat before until you heard Monkey Man. And again, this is him saying, all right, I'm hanging out with some unsavory type of women, and they're she-rats, whether they're just unsavory by who they are, or she-rats. I mean, who knows? Maybe he thinks that they're hangers on to him, but he just doesn't hold them in a very high regard. But I am just a monkey man, and I'm glad that you're a monkey woman too. I was bitten by a boar. I was gouged and I was gored, but I pulled through. Yeah, I'm a sack of broken eggs. I always have an unmade bed. Don't you? Well, I hope we're not too messianic or a trifle too satanic, but we love to play the blues. But, well, I'm just a monkey man, and I'm glad you're a monkey woman too. Monkey woman too, babe. Guy sounds like a mad genius to me. It's just absolutely amazing. It's again, it really shocks me when you're talking about people that live rough, fast lives, and like I would say, I'm going to associate these people who are, whether they're it's self-inflicted stuff, like whether they're heavy into alcohol or hard drugs, and they're addicted to it, and you can see that these people are living fast and they're living hard, and they're just very spun out of control, or they're just not themselves, or they're not the type of person that you're used to seeing. And many times I've always seen people just being in denial. Oh, I don't have a problem. I'm good. But the more times I jump into these lyrics to these songs, and especially going into the era here, the late 60s and early 70s, there's a lot of self-awareness that's going on here. And it's almost like people saying like, yeah, I know what? I'm messed up, but I'm going to get by. And they're not hiding the fact that they're messed up, which is, to me, almost kind of surprising, because when you're going to experience what we're going to say of like everyday normal people, they tend to hide this stuff. But when you're in a place of celebrity, and I don't know, like maybe it just comes more with the confidence that they're feeling because they've had this wild success, and they're just almost kind of like idolized by people in a way. They can just kind of just be more of themselves, and it's not going to hinder them in any way. It's like, yeah, I'm messed up, I'm a drug addict, but you're going to still buy my album and you're still going to watch my movies. So it doesn't really much matter. Where as like an everyday type of person, you can say, like, you imagine going into a job interview and saying like, hey, yeah, I'm a drug addict. They probably won't hire you. So it's almost like you see this, the public world of celebrity, and then the private world of everyday people. Just a different dynamic when it comes to substance abuse. And finally, we are going to jump into You Can't Always Get What You Want. The first thing that fascinated me about this track is that Charlie Watts does not play drums on this track. They're played by the album's producer, Jimmy Miller. Charlie couldn't play the groove to the song, so Miller stepped in. I'm always fascinated hearing stories like this, because, I mean, for people that are so solid, I mean, Charlie Watts to me is just a solid drummer, and he gets snake bit by a particular piece of music, and he just can't get himself to play this or to find the groove to play this. But then you have like a guy like Jimmy Miller, and I don't really know too much about that guy. Okay, he produced the album. That seems to be a sweet spot. But he had something within his drum playing style that was able to play on this track that Charlie Watts couldn't do, who is a wildly respected drummer within rock circles. I really like this song, but for me, compared to the rest of the album, it's a bit overplayed because of it being a hit single. And it was a go-to track of the oldies and classic rock radio in my younger years. I grew an appreciation for the rest of the album too. And I would want to get more of the rest, so to say. So rather than constantly getting bombarded with this track, it almost kind of puts me into a different mindset. But going into this project here, I just say I just have a total respect for this song, though, and it isn't something like I would. If I'm on the radio and this comes on, I'm like, oh, well, okay. You can't always get what you want again. But I digress. This is the first song recorded for the album. And as I mentioned before, it was the driving single of the album, which happened to be the B-side of Honky Tonk Women. But it can be argued that that would be a double A-side. You Can't Always Get What You Want could easily have just been a single. In my opinion, the track does stand out from the rest of the album in a unique way. I would say that this track is probably the most pop ear-pleasing, and the involvement of the London Bach Choir has it stand apart too from the rest of the albums of the track, because that's their only contribution to this album is that on You Can't Always Get What You Want. There are two versions of this song. There's the full album version, which clocks in at 7 minutes and 28 seconds, and the single mono version, which clocks in at 5 minutes. And it most notably omits the intro by the London Bach Choir, and along with lyrics that I will touch on in a moment. I hate to admit it, but there are many times when I play this album, I stop it after Monkey Man. I've been guilty of doing that, and I'm trying to not do that anymore, just because really this song is fantastic. It truly is. And it opens up here with, I saw her today at the reception, a glass of wine in her hand. I knew she would meet her connection. At her feet was her footloose man. No, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try some time, you might get what you need. And hearing those lyrics, I mean, that is, everybody should take in those lyrics there. You can't always get what you want, but if you try some time, you might find you get what you need. Isn't that just amazing? Like, I think as humans, we kind of lose sight of that. What we need should take priority over what we want. And the Rolling Stones get into that here. Now, I'm going to get into some lyrics here that are not part of the single mix. These were omitted from the single. I saw her today at the reception with a glass of wine in her hand. I knew she was going to meet her connection. You can't always get what you want. We've already went into that. But then it goes, but I went down to the demonstration to get your fair share of abuse, singing, we're going to vent our frustration. If we don't, we're going to blow up 50 amp fuse. And then it goes into, you can't always get what you want. It goes into the chorus there. I don't know why though. I guess when I'm looking at the rest of the lyrics here, those are probably the most disposable lyrics out of the whole song. If you had to cut the thing down, the proper version, of course, is the album version, and that's what they wanted. And I really don't get why they made a single version of the song to begin with. The Beatles had already kind of rewritten the rules for the single with Hey Jude, and I can remember this off the top of my head as a kid because I played the hell out of that single. Clocks in at 7 minutes and 11 seconds. You can't always get what you want 7 minutes and 28 seconds. I would say, going back, are these the most disposable lyrics on this song? Yeah, probably. But I would say that they're essential to the song. Maybe that just comes from me preferring the album version of the song. So yeah, I again, I don't know what the purpose behind that was, as things were changing when it came to singles in 1969. They didn't need to be 3 minutes anymore. 7 minutes and 28 seconds. And the song, it isn't like it's exhausting at all. It needs to be 7 minutes and 28 seconds. It needs to have maybe like cutting out the beginning London Bach choir part helps out, but those middle lyrics there, I have a tough time with that. But getting into the rest of the lyrics, I went down to the Chelsea drugstore to get your prescription filled. I was standing in line with Mr. Jimmy, and man, did he look pretty ill. Wow. Now that's something there. Now those are lyrics that I find to be very telling for a contemporary view of what we're going through right now when it comes to the opioid crisis. There was so much of a stigma when it came to illegal street drugs for people being messed up, but people are getting messed up now on prescription drugs also. And you can see these people in line when you're just going to get your, say like you have the flu, when you're going to get flu medicine or you're going to get antibiotics, you're going to see some people there that are going to be messed up on some other stuff. And yeah, they can look pretty rough when it comes to that. So yeah, this is where we're getting into that Mr. Jimmy here looking pretty ill. I would say going back into 1969, Mr. Jimmy, yeah, he's going to get his prescription because, yeah, he probably needs antibiotics, but he's probably messed up on some other street drugs on top of it. And that's why he looked pretty bad. We decided that we would have a soda, my favorite flavor, cherry red. I sung my song to Mr. Jimmy. Yeah, and he said one word to me, and that was dead. I said to him, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. And that's him going to this guy that's messed up. Mr. Jimmy sounds like he's the type of guy that he wants to get messed up. He wants his drugs. But does he need them? No, of course not. The addiction has taken over on him, but now it's getting to the point now like where this guy's going to Mr. Jimmy, hey, why don't you take a little bit more inventory in your life and just get what you need? And then it wraps up with her. I saw her today at the reception, and her glass was a bleeding man. She was practiced at the art of deception. Well, I can tell her by her bloodstained hands. Now, again, that sounds like a pretty crappy woman right there. She's in her glass was a bleeding man. That's a man that she has in the palm of her hands there. And Mick Jagger and Keith Richards with their writing is using, I would say, that the visualization of, we're going to say, red wine is being symbolized in blood. And that was the bleeding man. And so many times you can't even tell if somebody's, kind of at the mercy of another person when during a relationship. But this is like one of those type of things where it's kind of like she's showing here like, yeah, I'm in control of the situation here, and I'm just beating the hell out of this guy mentally. And going into there, she was practiced at the art of deception. Of course, she's going to walk around like nothing else is going on, almost kind of like an abuser in a type of way. And I think rather than a physical abuse on this one, this is more of like a mental and controlling type of thing where we have that glass was the bleeding man. And you can see how I can tell by her blood stained hands. And again, that's just another play on words. It's just a bit of symbolism. I'm sure that she's not having red wine or blood all over her hands, but it's Mick Jagger singing these lyrics to the parts like, yeah, I can see through what you're doing here. And yeah, you do have the blood on your hands. And then the song goes through the chorus there. You can't always get what you want, but you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. And then it ends with the London Bach choir just going, just a beautiful choral singing to close out the song. It's just really powerful. And I'm getting chills just even thinking about it and talking about it right now. So I think going through this exercise here has just been really good, going through this album, because I think, as I said before, I kind of lost my way when it came to you can't always get what you want. But I feel like I'm back on track here now when it comes to this song, and I'll definitely take it in a lot more than what I did before. And that closes up the tracks. And now on to my story of the album. My favorite era of the Rolling Stones is 1968 to 1972. I know it's kind of an arbitrary range, but the output by the band during this time was near flawless, and Let It Bleed was right in the middle of this. I didn't take in this whole album until 2006 when I purchased my first Super Audio CD player, or SACD player. The SACD is a niche format from the era, which was supposed to enhance the CD listening experience to give the music a more of an analog feel. And many of the album on this format hit the target where others were clunkers. Let It Bleed and the other Stones ABCO era recordings, and this basically hits all their 1960s stuff, was done marvelously on the SACD format. I would consider bringing this album into my spaces as a better late than never event, but I was able to listen to the album for the first time in its best digital form and on a solid stereo setup. Also, SACD was known for having the capacity to handle 5.1 mixes, but the Stones catalog was done in true stereo, which is great. If you were ever in the market or had a curiosity of this format, I would recommend seeking Let It Bleed out, as it sounds very clean and the stereo separation is sweet. Unfortunately, the SACD versions of these Stones albums are long out of print, so tracking them down isn't too bad, as they're often on eBay, but you'll be paying a premium. If you see it for under $40, snag it. If you have a nice turntable, then seek out an original clean vinyl copy. I was familiar with Gimme Shelter and You Can't Always Get What You Want from the radio play on Oldies Radio. I always enjoyed those tracks, and when it came on the radio, and they were strong singles, but the deep tracks really got me right from the start. I am a big fan of Martin Scorsese's films, and right off the bat, I heard a familiar track, Monkey Man. It's in Goodfellas, which ranks in my top 5 movies of all time. So that was a cool take to take in that track in its entirety, and it has grown to be one of my favorite tracks on the album. Gimme Shelter is also on Goodfellas. What really makes the album an instant classic for me is the grittiness of the music. The Stones are headlong into the blues and soul music of the South, and it's a great backdrop to many of these songs, like You Got the Silver, and especially the country influence of Country Honk, which was a head turner again for me when I first heard that, because it's really essentially a countrified version of Honky Tonk Women, which was released as a single, as I spoke earlier before. In closing, this is one of those albums where there are no duds. Every track is unique, and it has its own personality. I enjoy hearing the transition into the Mick Taylor era of the Stones, and I always enjoyed the interplay that he had with Keith, and he's a widely underrated guitarist who I've developed a massive admiration for in his playing. Mick and Keith's songwriting is also growing on Let It Bleed. They provide so much color to their lyrics, and they leave nothing to the imagination. They take you to places like where you've never been before. And that's what I enjoy about music, is having the ability to take my mind places I wouldn't imagine ever going to. And the Stones really knocked it out of the park when it came to Let It Bleed. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Church of Rock Show. I appreciate you sticking with me while I work through each episode. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and Podbean, and the show notes page on the website. If there's another platform you use, please share this with me and I'll work on getting the show there too. The audio version of the show is now available on YouTube. At this time, do a search of The Church of Rock Show to find the page, as the show has not reached its YouTube minimums to give the page a proper web address. So please like the page so we can get our numbers up to accomplish this. Share the show with a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way to grow the show. Visit the show at churchofrockshow.com and check out the show notes page under the podcast section of the site for bonus material such as videos, photos, and direct links to listen to the albums in their entirety on Spotify and Apple Music. Also check us out on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Church of Rock Show, and on Twitter at Church of Rock 75. Until next time, I will catch you for another episode of the Church of Rock Show.